They were not born as warriors. They were farmers who woke before dawn, factory workers who learned precision on assembly lines, students who put their futures on hold because their country asked them to. When the United States entered the Second World War, it did not summon an ancient warrior class or a generation trained only for battle. It called upon ordinary Americans, and it trusted them to do extraordinary things. These men carried into combat the values they were raised with: responsibility, cooperation, and an unshakable belief that freedom was worth defending. And the nation armed them not with symbols of fear, but with tools designed to work, to endure, and to win. American military power during the war was not built on intimidation alone. It was built on confidence in the individual soldier. While other nations relied heavily on centralized control and rigid hierarchies, the United States believed that a well-trained soldier, properly equipped, could be trusted to make decisions under fire. This belief shaped everything, from training manuals to battlefield tactics to the weapons themselves. Few weapons embodied this philosophy more clearly than the bazooka. When American troops first faced German armor in Europe, the challenge was unmistakable. German tanks had earned a fearsome reputation. They moved with speed, protection, and firepower that had overwhelmed armies across the continent. To many soldiers, the sound of tank engines meant one thing: danger that could not be stopped by rifles or courage alone. Earlier in the war, infantry forces across Europe had learned this lesson the hard way. Tanks advanced. Infantry withdrew. Steel ruled the battlefield. But American infantry was not meant to surrender ground simply because a machine approached. The Bazooka M1 was a quiet revolution. It did not look imposing. It did not roar like artillery or dominate the skyline like a tank turret. It was a tube carried on the shoulder of a foot soldier. Yet inside that simplicity was a powerful idea: that the balance between man and machine did not have to favor the machine. For the first time, a common infantryman could stop a tank with a weapon he could carry, aim, and fire himself. This was not accidental. American engineers worked with a clear purpose. Weapons needed to be simple enough to be used by soldiers with limited time to train, yet effective enough to change battlefield realities. The bazooka's shaped charge warhead was designed to penetrate armor through physics, not brute force. It did not rely on speed alone, but on intelligent design. This was American innovation at its best: practical, efficient, and decisive. Training reinforced this confidence. Soldiers were taught not to fear tanks, but to understand them. They learned where armor was strongest and where it was weakest. They studied angles, distances, and timing. They practiced under pressure. The message was clear: a tank was dangerous, but it was not invincible. Knowledge and discipline could overcome steel. As American forces advanced through hedgerows, villages, and narrow European roads, German tank crews began to notice a shift. Infantry units no longer fled at the first sight of armor. They moved deliberately. They used terrain intelligently. They waited until the moment was right. And then tanks that once rolled forward with confidence were suddenly stopped, disabled by men on foot. This change had a powerful psychological effect. German tank crews had been trained to expect dominance over infantry. Now every village became a threat. Every tree line could hide a bazooka team. Every advance required caution. Momentum slowed. Fear crept in. The battlefield no longer belonged exclusively to armor. The bazooka was not flawless. Early versions had limited range. Accuracy depended on the operator's training and nerve. Firing the weapon required exposing oneself to enemy fire. But American doctrine accounted for this. Soldiers were trained to work in teams. One man aimed, another reloaded. Others provided covering fire. Infantry squads coordinated movement and protection. It was never about a lone hero. It was about coordinated effort. This reflected a deeper truth about American warfare. The United States did not build its strength on individual acts of desperation. It built it on cooperation, logistics, and trust. The Bazooka team was a microcosm of this system. Ordinary men working together, accomplishing what once seemed impossible. As battles intensified in Normandy, the push across France, and the brutal fighting in the Ardennes, the bazooka became a familiar presence. Soldiers carried it with respect. German crews learned to fear it. Reports began to circulate. Tanks damaged, advances stalled, routes abandoned. German commanders were forced to rethink tactics that had once guaranteed success. Meanwhile, American production never slowed. Weapons were replaced. Ammunition was supplied. Improved versions of the bazooka entered service. Feedback from the front lines reached engineers back home, and adjustments were made quickly. This ability to adapt, to listen to soldiers and respond, was one of America's greatest strengths. Behind every bazooka shot was a soldier who believed in his equipment and his training. These were not reckless men chasing glory. They were disciplined soldiers making calculated decisions to protect their units and complete their missions. Stopping a tank was not about heroism. It was about survival. For themselves, for their comrades, and for the advance of freedom. German tank crews began to move more cautiously. Armor required infantry support. Progress slowed. Each delay gave Allied forces time to reinforce, resupply, and press forward again. The initiative shifted. And once initiative is lost, it is rarely regained. The bazooka did not operate alone. It was part of a larger system. Artillery, air power, intelligence, and logistics all working together. But at ground level, it represented something critical. It ensured that no tank could ever feel completely safe. It reminded the enemy that American infantry was not helpless, not intimidated, and not easily broken. After the war, historians would analyze the bazooka in technical terms. They would discuss penetration depth, effective range, and design evolution. But for the men who carried it, the weapon meant something far more immediate. It meant standing your ground. It meant having a chance. It meant knowing that your nation had thought about your survival before sending you into battle. American soldiers did not see themselves as symbols. They saw themselves as men doing a job that had to be done. Yet in trusting these men with effective tools, the United States demonstrated a fundamental truth: that a free society, when challenged, could mobilize intelligence, industry, and manpower into a force capable of overcoming even the most fearsome threats. The fear felt by German tank crews was not just fear of a weapon. It was fear of a system that worked. Fear of soldiers who were trained, supported, and trusted. Fear of an army that combined innovation with discipline and technology with human judgment. By the later stages of the war, German armored units could no longer advance with confidence. Tanks still existed, they were still dangerous. But their dominance had been challenged at every level. And that challenge came not from desperation, but from preparation. The bazooka did not win the war by itself. No single weapon ever does. But it played its role, faithfully, effectively, and decisively. It was one piece of a larger American effort that combined factories at home with soldiers at the front, engineers with infantrymen, strategy with sacrifice. And behind that simple metal tube were American soldiers who stood their ground when history demanded it, men who trusted their training, men who trusted each other, men who proved that even the most imposing machines could be stopped by disciplined soldiers who refused to yield. In the heat of battle, American soldiers armed with the bazooka became the embodiment of ingenuity and power. When the world was gripped by the terrifying advance of enemy tanks, the US didn't need superior numbers or size. It needed innovation. The bazooka, deceptively simple yet devastatingly effective, showcased America's unmatched ability to harness technology to level the playing field, turning the tide of war in favor of those who dared to believe in their own strength. The sight of American infantry, armed with the bazooka, standing their ground against the might of German tanks, was a testament to the unmatched spirit of the United States. While enemy forces relied on brute force and fear, American soldiers leveraged their training, intelligence, and the cutting-edge design of their weapons. This was a nation that understood that true power lay not in the size of one's army, but in the heart and mind of the soldier wielding the weapon. Each time the bazooka fired, it delivered more than a missile. It delivered a message. The United States would not bow to tyranny. German tanks, once considered unstoppable, began to falter under the weight of American resolve. The bazooka symbolized the shift from hopelessness to hope, from fear to confidence, showing the world that a determined nation, when given the right tools, could defy the odds and crush any obstacle in its path. The bazooka, though not without its limitations, represented the epitome of American military thinking. It wasn't just about strength, it was about adaptability. While enemy forces relied on overwhelming power, American soldiers used strategy and precision to turn the battlefield in their favor. The bazooka wasn't just a weapon, it was a statement that the United States, fueled by innovation, could change the rules of warfare and conquer even the most formidable foes. As the war raged on, American soldiers, armed with their bazookas, became a terrifying sight for German tank crews. Every time they advanced, they risked encountering a weapon that leveled the playing field. The bazooka wasn't just about taking down tanks. It was about turning the enemy's confidence into fear. American forces proved that the greatest strength wasn't in sheer force, but in the ingenuity to create weapons that could destroy that force. The psychological toll on German tank crews was immense. They had trained for dominance, only to find themselves thwarted by a simple tube carried by foot soldiers. This shift in momentum showcased the power of American innovation. With the bazooka in hand, the US didn't just challenge the status quo, it obliterated it. The battlefield was no longer dominated by tanks. It was shaped by the ingenuity and resolve of the American soldier, who used knowledge and courage to defeat might. American ingenuity shone brightest in the form of the bazooka, a weapon that reflected the country's unparalleled capacity for rapid innovation. As American engineers listened to the front lines and continuously improved the weapon, they proved that the United States didn't just adapt to war, it redefined it. The bazooka became a symbol of that unyielding drive, showing that American power wasn't only about military size, but about using intelligence and adaptability to win wars. By the time the Allies pushed through France, the bazooka had become a legendary weapon, one that embodied the strength of the American fighting spirit. It wasn't just a tool of destruction, it was a reflection of the United States' commitment to victory, no matter the odds. Every soldier, every shot, was a testament to the power of a nation that refused to yield, proving that even the most imposing enemies could be toppled by a relentless, well-equipped force. The bazooka's effectiveness was more than its ability to disable tanks. It represented the United States' ability to equip its soldiers with the best tools, ensuring they had a fighting chance against seemingly insurmountable odds. It wasn't just about the weapon, it was about the trust in the men who carried it. The United States armed its soldiers not only with the power to fight, but with the confidence that they could win, no matter the enemy. As the war drew to a close, the impact of the bazooka on the battlefield was undeniable. The weapon not only leveled the playing field, it tilted the balance in favor of the United States. It was a symbol of a nation's unyielding will to win, and the extraordinary lengths it would go to ensure victory. The bazooka didn't just help defeat the enemy, it sent a powerful message. When the United States steps onto the battlefield, it is equipped to reshape the war. In the end, the bazooka wasn't just a weapon, it was a testament to the American way of war. It wasn't about overwhelming force or brute strength. It was about using intelligence, ingenuity, and unity to overcome the greatest challenges. The weapon itself became a symbol of the United States military supremacy, a reminder that when the nation is called upon, it doesn't just fight. It dominates with precision, innovation, and unwavering resolve, ensuring victory on every front. Through every conflict, the United States demonstrated that its true strength lay in its ability to adapt and innovate. The bazooka, though simple in design, represented the best of American ingenuity. It was a weapon built not just for battle, but for victory. And with every shot fired, it reaffirmed that the US wasn't just a participant in the war. It was a force that could turn the tide, no matter how fierce the opposition.